The Cemetery Murders. A Raven Darkblade Mystery. Chapter 2. Double Plots and Single Efforts. Thursday morning arrived at the Crimson City Police Department with all the subtlety of a funeral procession through a library. Detective Raven Darkblade sat at his desk, currently 5 feet 10 inches, with standard thunder energy, trying to understand a report that kept changing every time he looked at it. Darkblade! Jenny Shoutsloud burst through the door with her usual volume. George Grimestone is dead. George! Raven looked up from his report, which he now realized was actually yesterday's crossword puzzle. From the funeral, the one with the determined beetle? Exactly. He died this morning. 3 days after Eleanor. That's sad. Raven pulled out his notepad, which today was the back of a dry cleaning receipt. Natural causes? Broken heart syndrome. The doctor said his heart literally changed shape from grief. Jenny spread files across his desk. But here's the thing. This keeps happening. She showed him the newspaper clippings. Raven studied them carefully, his height adjusting to 5 feet 11 inches as he noticed something. These couples all have matching last names, he observed. They're married, Raven. That's how marriage works. Oh, right. He made a note. Marriage equals same names. But look at the pattern. Monday through Thursday, Tuesday to Saturday, Sunday to Wednesday. They're all dying within 3 to 5 days of each other, Jenny explained. That's very considerate, Raven said. Not leaving their spouse alone for long. My houseplants did the same thing. One died, then the other gave up. Plant solidarity. This isn't about plants, Raven. It's suspicious. Suspicious how? People die of broken hearts. It's romantic. Tragic, but romantic. Tragically romantic, romantically tragic. Before Jenny could decide which one, Corvus Lightknife entered the station. He moved with his characteristic precision, like someone had choreographed walking, and he'd memorized it perfectly. Today's suit was charcoal gray, with silver details that somehow made everyone else look underdressed. Detectives, he said, placing a leather folder on Raven's desk at exactly 90 degrees to the edge. I have information about the cemetery patterns. You're investigating this too? Raven asked, his height rising to 6 feet 0 inches with surprise. I've been retained by Eternal Rest Cemetery as a consultant. Corvus opened his folder, revealing documents so organized they looked judgmental. They've noticed unusual burial patterns and hired me to optimize their operations. Optimize death? Raven asked. Optimize burial logistics, Corvus corrected. For instance, when George Grimestone's wife died Monday, I calculated an 89.7% probability he would pass within 72 to 96 hours. You predicted his death? I predicted the statistical likelihood based on observed patterns. Corvus made a note in his notebook. The cemetery wants to improve their efficiency. He showed them a spreadsheet that made Raven's eyes water just looking at it. Double burials have increased 400% in the last 6 months. All elderly couples, all dying within the same week. Since when? Jenny asked. since Digger O'Graves implemented his new Eternal Togetherness initiative. Corvus's pen clicked once. Precisely. He's been promoting couples' burial packages. Pre-dug plots. Very efficient. Pre-dug? Raven wrote this down on his receipt. He digs the graves before people die? For the second spouse, yes. He claims he can predict when they'll pass. We should talk to him, Jenny decided. They drove to Eternal Rest Cemetery, which looked exactly like it had on Monday, except the clouds were doing something ominous that clouds probably shouldn't do. Raven parked crooked, as usual, his car taking up 1.5 spaces in defiance of painted lines. Digger O'Graves was in the northwest section, standing beside a freshly dug grave that was notably wider than standard. He didn't look up when they approached, focused on smoothing the edges with a tool Raven couldn't identify. "Detectives," Digger said. "Hear about the Grimestones?" "How did you know?" Raven asked. "Saw you at the Deadman funeral. Plus you're wearing a badge." Digger straightened, his back making sounds like Rice Krispies in milk. "Figured you'd have questions about George." "This grave," Jenny pointed out. "It's wide. Double plot. Dug it Tuesday." Digger wiped his hands on his overalls, which were so dirty they'd achieved a kind of permanence. "George'll be here tomorrow, right next to Eleanor. Efficient." "But George was still alive Tuesday," Raven said, his height dropping to 5 feet, 9 inches with temporal confusion. 30 years of digging graves. You see patterns." Digger led them to a shed that looked like it had been assembled from other, sadder sheds. "Let me show you something." Inside, the walls were covered with charts and graphs tracking death patterns. Raven tried to understand them, but they made his brain feel sideways. "My system," Digger explained proudly. "I track everything. Age, health, length of marriage. I can predict within a day when the second spouse will pass." "That's..." Raven searched for the word. "Creepy? Impressive? Creepily impressive?" "It's practical." Digger pulled out a tin from a drawer full of similar tins. "I help the process along with comfort. Free tea for the grieving spouses. Eternal Rest herbal blend. My own recipe." "That's thoughtful," Raven said, then noticed Corvus making rapid notes. "What kind of tea?" "Chamomile, lavender, other herbs. Traditional family recipe." Digger poured himself a cup from a thermos. "Tastes terrible though, like boiled sadness with a hint of regret. But the widows find it comforting." "All the surviving spouses get this tea?" Jenny asked carefully. "Part of my service. Comfort in a cup, I call it." He took a sip and grimaced. "Though between you and me, 1 cup and you'll sleep like the dead." Corvus stepped forward. "May I take a sample?" "For quality assessment?" "Sure." Digger handed him the entire tin. "Take it all. I've got plenty more." As they left the cemetery, Raven couldn't shake a feeling, though he wasn't sure what kind of feeling or why he was feeling it. His height settled at 5 feet 10 inches, his uncertain altitude. "That tea needs testing," Jenny said in the car. "Why?" Raven asked. "He said it tastes bad. Why confirm disappointment?" "To see what's in it, Raven." "He said herbs. Herbal tea has herbs. It's right in the name." Jenny gave him a look that suggested she was reconsidering their partnership, which happened about twice a week. Back at the station, Corvus disappeared with the tea, claiming he had connections at a lab. Raven sat at his desk, looking at his notes on the dry cleaning receipt. He'd written, "Marriage equals same names," and "pre-dug graves," and "beetle," though he couldn't remember why the beetle was important. "Every surviving spouse," Jenny said, studying the files, "got tea from Digger." "That's nice of him," Raven said. "Free tea during grief. Though if it tastes as bad as he says, maybe it's not that nice. They all died within his predicted time frame. He's good at his job." Raven found a paperclip and started bending it into shapes. "Maybe we should hire him to predict other things, like weather or lottery numbers." "Raven," Jenny said slowly, "what if the tea is connected to the deaths?" "How? Does bad taste cause heart attacks?" Raven's paperclip was now vaguely swan-shaped, or possibly a deformed number 4, though his description was pretty awful. Boiled sadness doesn't sound healthy. His phone buzzed. A text from Summer Tides. "Miss you. Hope you're solving something less wet than our last case." Raven smiled and texted back, "Investigating graves. Very dry. No water murders at all." "Focus, Raven," Jenny said. "Barbara Bleak's husband died yesterday." "Who?" "Walter Bleak. Natural causes. If the pattern holds, Barbara will die within 3 to 5 days," Raven finished, proud of remembering the pattern. "We should warn her. Tell her to avoid patterns. Patterns seem dangerous. We should make sure she doesn't drink any mysterious tea," Jenny corrected. "All tea is mysterious," Raven philosophized. "Leaves in water becoming flavor. It's basically magic." They drove to Barbara Bleak's house, a tidy bungalow on Morning Glory Lane, which seemed like an unfortunately appropriate street name. Raven noticed a van pulling away as they arrived. O'Grave's Funeral Services, painted on the side, in letters that managed to be both cheerful and depressing. "He's already been here," Jenny said grimly. They rushed to the door. Barbara Bleak answered, looking exactly like someone whose husband had just died, confused, sad, and holding a steaming cup of tea. "Mrs. Bleak?" Jenny showed her badge. "We need to talk to you about that tea." "This?" Barbara looked at her cup. "Mr. O'Graves just brought it. Said it would help me sleep, though it tastes awful. Like someone made tea out of old flowers and disappointment." "Don't drink it," Jenny said urgently. "Why? Is disappointment bad for you?" "Potentially," Raven said, which was technically true. Barbara set down the cup, looking confused. "Is something wrong? Mr. O'Graves seems so nice. He even pre-measured my husband's plot. Said he'd have a space ready for me whenever I'm ready." "Pre-measured?" Raven's height shot to 6 feet 1 inch with realization. "He's already planning your grave?" "He said it's easier to dig them together, more efficient. He showed me charts." Jenny called for the tea to be collected as evidence while Raven wandered around the living room, noticing things. Photos of Barbara and Walter through the years, all smiling, all together. A lifetime of togetherness, about to end because of efficiency. "Mrs. Bleak," Raven said suddenly, "do you want to die?" "What? No. I mean, I'm sad. Devastated. But Walter would want me to keep going. She looked at the teacup with new suspicion. Why? What's in that tea? We don't know yet, Jenny admitted. But we think it might be connected to some recent deaths. The other couples, Barbara said quietly. I heard about them, all dying days apart. I thought it was romantic. Tragic, but romantic. Tragically romantic, Raven agreed. Or romantically tragic. I've been trying to decide. That evening, back at the station, Corvus returned with his test results. His expression was even more controlled than usual, which meant something significant. The tea contains traces of embalming fluid, he announced. Mixed with herbs to mask the taste. Not enough to kill immediately, but enough to cause organ failure within 72 hours. He's poisoning them, Jenny said. Digger is killing the spouses. But why? Raven asked, his height dropping to 5 feet 8 inches with confusion. If he wants to dig fewer graves, killing more people seems counterproductive. More dead people means more graves, not fewer. Everyone paused. That's actually a good point, Corvus admitted, making a note. Then another, then 5 more in rapid succession. Unless, Raven continued, his height rising to 5 feet 11 inches with theory formation, he doesn't want fewer graves. He wants easier graves. 1 big hole is easier than 2 small ones. Less getting in and out. Less moving around. Better for his back. He's killing people for ergonomic reasons, Jenny asked incredulously. Have you heard his back crack? It sounds like someone stepping on bubble wrap filled with gravel. Raven pulled out his phone to text Summer. Solved it. Sort of. Man killing people because his back hurts. Is that a normal motive? Summer texted back immediately. In Crimson City? That's practically mundane. Ha 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 ha. She had a point. We need to arrest him, Jenny decided. Tomorrow, Corvus said. I want to observe his morning routine. Document his process. Build an airtight case. Also, it's late and I'm tired, Raven added honestly. As they prepared to leave, Raven had another thought. Wait, if Barbara didn't drink the tea, does that mean she'll live? Presumably, Corvus said. So we broke the pattern. Raven's height reached an impressed 6 feet 0 inches. We saved someone by ruining tea time? Don't celebrate yet, Jenny warned. Digger might have other methods. But Raven was already texting Summer. Save someone from death tea. Feeling very detective-y. Detective. Her response? Death tea? That's a terrible flavor. Proud of you. As he left the station, Raven felt something he rarely felt. Competent. He'd noticed the pattern flaw. He'd helped save Barbara. He'd contributed to the case in a meaningful way. Of course, he'd also spent 20 minutes that afternoon trying to open a door by pushing when it clearly said pull. But that was beside the point. The case was almost solved. They just had to arrest a lazy gravedigger with a bad back and a worse tea recipe. What could go wrong? In Crimson City, that was never a question you should ask. But Raven didn't know that yet. To be continued, ergonomically. Author's note. This chapter is dedicated to everyone who's ever committed murder for ergonomic reasons, which hopefully is nobody. Also to tea that tastes like disappointment. which is unfortunately common, any resemblance to actual burial efficiency initiatives is purely coincidental. Please check your tea for embalming fluid, especially if it's free and offered by someone who's already measured your grave.